Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. As we move closer to Christmas week, I want a special Christmas gift, and that is I want the brown suspect captured. We are dealing with the Keystone cops. We are dealing with ineptitude like I have never seen before inside law enforcement agencies. This specifically goes for the Providence Police Department, the Brown Police Department. So we're learning all kinds of things about diversity, equity, and inclusion, sanctuary city policies, how this all played into a culture that does not allow police to capture criminals, because everything that was put in place before put inept leadership in place. It took away cameras, apparently, because they didn't want to be videotaping illegal aliens. And then, of course, you've got ineptitude on a wide scale. I'm going to prove to you how inept they are. The police chief of Providence just admitted that they have not interviewed everybody that was in that study hall. 60 people in there. They're still trying to figure out who was in there. You're telling me you can't figure that out? And yet witnesses have been shut up. Something fishy is going on here. Something doesn't add up, because witnesses from that study hall you would think would come forward. They've not. I think those witnesses are being squashed. I think they're being threatened to keep silent. Then you have the police chief saying, we haven't spoken to all of them. Well, then who has? Because the media, for as awful as they are, they do a pretty good job of hunting down victims, witnesses, and those kinds of things and marching them out in front of the public. Not for the good of catching a suspect, but for ratings. But whatever reason it may be, the reality is we're not getting a lot of information out of this. 5 days later, the police chief has not spoken to, or detectives have not spoken to, who was in that room. Utter disgrace. So we're going to talk about that today on the program. Before we start the show, I want to tell you about a new mindset course that I have created. It's called the mavericksystem.com, the mavericksystem.com. What I need are some testimonials. I deeply discounted this course. This is about taking back your own mind. This is about becoming mentally tough. This is about setting yourself up for success. The process of envisioning success, of believing in yourself, of how to confront others, of dealing with adversity. You go through this course, I promise you, you're going to come away a freaking badass. And that, in the end, moves America in the right direction. My sole goal is to help America, and I think it starts with all of you. So if you feel like you're getting passed by, if you feel like things just aren't going your way, if you feel like you just need a little oomph, but you know you have it, and this is the key, it's for people that know they have it, but something's missing. The mavericksystem.com, again, deeply discounted. Let me know how you like it, and then I'd love to get some testimonials from you. Just reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter or whatever it may be. The mavericksystem.com, the mavericksystem.com. With that, folks, I say we get this show started. Whoops.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. So we got real problems. The Ivy League Keystone cops. Keystone cops of the Ivy League, however you want to describe it. But boy, oh boy, is this not maybe one of the most frustrating investigations you've ever seen? They're inept. There's so many things that should be done. And then even the media like Fox News, I'm going to play a clip from you of a former law enforcement guy that appears to me knows nothing about firearms. And they pretend like they're these great experts. It always amazed me how many police officers are not proficient in the use of a firearm. It's like the firearm is just one little subset of their training, and they don't put a lot of emphasis on the use of a firearm. In fact, police get very little training in the use of firearms. Most police are not even gun guys or gals, which always amazed me that There are people out there much more proficient than police officers with the use of firearms. I'm going to show you this clip and prove to you why later on in the program as well. But this is the clip that got me so angry because I don't know what they're doing here. You know, we need justice. This guy's still on the loose. My assumption is he's dangerous. I believe he has relations to Islamic terror, the suspect. But you wouldn't know any of this from investigators.
Colonel, could you now explain to us 5 days later how many students were in that classroom? Sadly, 2 lost their lives, 9 others injured. Encouraged about the update today. But can you now?
So it's hard to hear, but the question is, how many kids were in that classroom? Have you talked to them? And it's in the back. I'm going to let him answer.
Say, how many kids were in that classroom? And did the gunman come in from the back so these people never knew it was coming? Or did he come in front with full view of everybody?
All right. Did he come in the front or did he come in the back of the room? Was he in full view of everyone or did he catch everybody from behind?
All part of the interviews, and actually we're cooperating with Brown to get the roster. That was a study hall, so we don't have the number. We're still getting information as far as who was there. I know Brown sent out an email to the students to notify us if they were present, and we're still getting that, so I can't give you an exact account now.
Wait. 5, maybe 6 days later? You still don't know exactly who was in the classroom? You're looking for a suspect who's on the run, but you don't even know who's in the classroom as far as who were the victims in there. And when I say victims, even if you weren't hit with gunfire, you're a victim. You went through and experienced a crime firsthand. You don't know who was in the classroom? What kind of police agency is this? It doesn't make any sense to me. What is taking them so long? Or is Brown holding it up? But why would Brown want to hold it up unless Brown has inside information that it's one of their own? They've taken down web pages that show a description of somebody that looks a lot like it could be the suspect. And they're taking that down. So, yes, we need answers. Now, listen to this craziness, all right? Listen to this. This is a reporter. Oh, hold on. Let's play this. Yes, this is the reporter who's actually a talk show host, I believe, in Providence, that talked about information he got from sources that cameras in that building and around campus were taken down because of sanctuary city policies. Okay? Here.
The camera in that building that Brown put off because the sanctuary city law that we have. You don't want to record illegal immigrants, and you don't want to provide the footage to the FBI or immigration authority. One camera in that building, it come out from your detectives, they are friends of mine, they're angry at this investigation that these people in Brown University put the camera off, they can identify that person. You imagine how the family want to go through? Tell the truth to the media here. Putting cameras off.
We heard from both the Brown police chief and the provost at Brown, who have shared that they have been fully cooperative and been forthcoming with all data and evidence that they have.
The camera in that building that Brown put off because the sanctuary city law that we have. You don't want to record illegal immigrants, and you don't want to provide the footage to the FBI or immigration authority. One camera and that building, it come out from your detectives, they are friends of mine, they're angry at this investigation that these people in Brown University put the camera off, they can identify that person. You imagine how the family want to go through? Tell the truth to the media here.
So that's the question. He says his sources inside the police, and I apologize about muting. You know, I keep coughing like that. I'm getting better. I hit the mute button and forget to turn it back on. My fault. I really do apologize on that. So that's a talk radio host who has sources that say the cameras were taken down. The Palestinian goons that are running rampant on the campus of Brown University and all these other Ivy League schools apparently went to administration, said, take the cameras down. We don't want them because we want to protest and riot freely without the worry of being identified. Then this radio host says, you know what, there were illegal aliens. It says we can't have the cameras because we can't roam freely because we'll be on camera and we're here illegally. So did Brown submit? Did they bend a knee? They bend a knee for everything else. I'm sure they probably did submit. So again, Smiley here doesn't answer the question. He says, you got all the evidence we have.
We heard from both the Brown police chief and the provost at Brown who have shared that they have been fully cooperative and been forthcoming with all data and evidence.
I mean, what kind of nonsense is this? Forthcoming with data and evidence? You haven't, because you're still not telling us whether he yelled Allahu Akbar, which 100% plays into limiting the suspect pool if you're trying to figure out who it is. Now, I had friends of mine that says, oh, you don't want to give up information about the suspect. No. When you talk about information that only the suspect would know, if the suspect left behind a note card with his handwriting on it, you don't want to tell the world that you have that note card because you can use that to see and tie the suspect of what was left behind. But if 60 people heard him yell Allahu Akbar, he knows 60 people heard him yell Allahu Akbar. There's no reason why you can't tell the community that's what he yelled. And in fact, you may tip off his family. A guy who was complaining about free Palestine and all this other stuff, you'd now start to hone down who are possible suspects. So again, this is the situation we need to focus on. Now, what about the police chief? The police chief of Brown, we haven't heard from him. We still don't hear much from him. Why? I think because he's a total inept DEI hire. Apparently, he worked for the University of Utah. They were so upset with what he was doing. They asked him to either leave or be fired, so he left. Well, Brown says, come on over and help us out. I'm going to play for you Jesse Waters. He laid it out. I don't usually play other hosts, but what he laid out was so interesting. What he laid out was so interesting. I'm just going to play it for you because it's information most certainly worth hearing. Folks, let me tell you something about as we head into the holidays. EnergizedHealth.com, EnergizedHealth.com. It's about intercellular hydration. This is going to speed your metabolism up like a rocket ship, okay? You get on the cellular hydration protocol. You speed up your metabolism. All your vitals start to go in the right direction. You shed fat like you wouldn't believe, and then you start to build muscle mass. This is not a crazy workout plan. It's not a crazy diet. It's about getting hydrated at a cellular level. You make a few changes, a few tweaks. You follow the protocol. You get committed to it. And in 88 days, you're going to notice a change like you've never seen before. In just 2 weeks, I lost 15 pounds. EnergizedHealth.com. That's EnergizedHealth.com. Go on the website. Watch the masterclass, okay? Once you watch that masterclass, you're going to know whether or not this was right for you. And if it is, you just book a call. They're not salesmen. There's no pressure. But you can ask questions. They can tell you how they would run the plan for you. Book that call. It's really, really important. EnergizedHealth.com. That's EnergizedHealth.com. All right. Now to the Jesse Waters clip that I was telling you about. This is the chief. Watch this.
That is typical for that academic space.
So that right there is the mysterious campus safety chief, Rodney Chapman. Funny, we haven't really heard from him. Where's he been? Well, we just discovered the Brown University police chief isn't really a big fan of policing. He once said this: communities don't want policing done to them. How this guy came to Brown is a crazy story. He was the head of campus security at the University of Utah, and right after he was hired there, he was immediately suspended because he didn't have the proper credentials. Utah then told him, we're going to fire you or you're going to have to resign. What's it going to be? So Rodney resigned, and Brown said, we'll take you. And right before this shooting, Brown's police union issued a vote of no confidence in Chief Rodney. The chief's own men accused Rodney of endangering officers and creating a toxic workplace culture. Rodney should know the campus better than anyone, but all week he's been hiding under his desk. He's obviously completely unqualified. Brown's the most liberal Ivy League school, and they take DEI more seriously than safety. The school's been under intense pressure from the Palestinian students. The president, who was a no-show at today's presser, has been heckled for years by Muslim underclassmen. She always bends the knee, but they heckle her anyway. Over the summer, radical left human rights groups demanded Brown disable their security cameras so Palestinian activists could raise hell under the radar. Did they cave? We asked. No response. It's not just Brown. The whole city is a DEI mess. You know who else was at the press conference? The Providence City Council Chief of Staff is a genderless bisexual who was arrested for protesting at Trump Tower this year. Meanwhile, the police chief could be compromised. Turns out the chief's nephew was sentenced to 22 years in federal prison for running one of the largest fentanyl rings in Rhode Island. And Mayor Smiley promoted him to chief knowing his family was trafficking. Why would Smiley do that?
So, look at this. I mean, is Keystone Cops an understatement? And do I date myself with age by bringing up the Keystone Cops? In fact, the Keystone Cops were long before my time. I mean, it's like we're watching a bad movie. If you made this stuff up, you'd be amazed and shocked that you were watching a movie like this. And yet, these are real people that were victimized. You've got 2 people killed. This Ella Cook, she was one of the most prominent Republicans on campus. Do you really believe that somehow this is not connected to her? Was she not targeted? Now, the only thing that'll lead me away from the targeted attack, and could it be a coincidence, even though I don't believe in coincidences, is that 9 other people were shot. I want to know what happened. Did people try to subdue the gunman? Was he shooting the other people to get away from them? Because if you're just trying to kill the prominent Republican on campus, Charlie Kirk 2.0, well, then you don't need to shoot 9 other people. And in fact, he passed others by. So again, a lot of it is not adding up in my mind. Now, what about evidence? You had a Fox News analyst come on and talk about the evidence that investigators are collecting, which to me seems to be very minimal, unfortunately. So the evidence that they're collecting happened to be an unspent round, a 9mm. Now, how you have an unspent round unless the gun jammed and you have to clear the gun, hammer the magazine back in, clear, hammer, hammer until you clear it. That, if there was a jam, is how you would have an unspent round. If there's no jam, there's no chance of having an unspent round left behind because you're firing. Those rounds are in a magazine. You're not going to be loading a magazine in a situation like that. There's no way he's loading a magazine, has loose rounds in his pocket. You would preload your magazines, which is why there would be DNA on those rounds. And the analyst is correct that once it's fired, there's so much heat in the chamber that the evidence, DNA evidence, is often destroyed. But I can't imagine an unspent round unless there was a jam. Now, witnesses would tell you whether or not his firearm jammed. You're going to know that. But listen how he refers to. This is a mistake. This is how I know this guy's not a gun guy, okay? Because he makes a mistake no gun guy would ever make, even though he corrects himself.
The information about the DNA is widely out. The fact that the task force is working some DNA, there's some reporting that it's from shell casings found at the scene. What I can tell you from my sourcing is that I think quite significantly, they have live rounds. That is, rounds that were not fired, undetonated rounds. Why does that matter? Because shell casings have enclosed a detonation. That's how bullets work, which means they often destroy evidence and they're scorched. In the case of live rounds, think about what happens there on a 9mm automatic.
A 9mm automatic. Do you understand that's a term I would never, ever use? Now, I worked for the National Rifle Association. I know a little bit more about guns than the average Joe. But as a conservative, I don't even think you'd say that a 9mm automatic. It's not an automatic firearm. It's a semi-automatic firearm. Now, he ends up going back and correcting himself. But it seems to me like he's pontificating. This is now, you know I love the New York City Police Department. I actually think the NYPD is one of the finest police departments in the country until top brass started to ruin it when all the leftist lunatics came in and take over the mayor's office and start destroying the NYPD. But NYPD and LAPD are fabulous police departments with very smart people. But here's what amazed me. You had so-called conservatives inside the NYPD that were not big gun rights people. They don't understand firearms. They don't understand the value of firearms and the people. I think this is a Northeast thing. They've been trained from a very young age that only the cops should have guns. This guy was a NYPD counter-terrorist officer, and he talks about a 9mm automatic. Instantly, you've lost credibility with me. This whole rigmarole about the live rounds, I think you're speculating. Live rounds, he used plural. One, if your gun jams, you're going to have one round that's jammed, and you keep racking, hammering until you can get that gun unjammed. I don't foresee you having multiple rounds. And again, witnesses would tell you whether or not the gun jammed, but oh, wait a second, they haven't talked to the witnesses. He continued, and you watch him correct himself, which I'll applaud him for that at least.
The perpetrator has to fat finger those rounds, bullets, into a magazine, which is the sleeve that holds them, and that gets put into the handle of the gun. That's how a semi-automatic works. So,
again, when you're explaining the most basic things about firearms to an audience in Fox News, it tells me you're trying to look like you know what you're talking about. Everybody out there knows what a magazine is. Everybody knows that you have to insert the magazine into the firearm. You don't need to explain that to the Fox News audience, okay? Maybe you need to explain it to yourself, that it's not an automatic weapon.
you have a perpetrator handling rounds that have not been exploded that are found at the scene. It's the same thing we saw, if you recall, in Luigi Mangione. When the gun jammed, he also had a semi-automatic. He had to rack the slide to try to get it to work and clear the jam. He did, but that ejects the live rounds. Live rounds at this scene, I think, is a hopeful sign for getting usable DNA, even if he's not in the database. Remember, they can use that familial DNA technique that we saw in the Koberger case. It gets to a cousin or something, you work back from there. So I think that's a positive sign for the investigation, and I can tell you they're scraping very hard at it.
Again, this is the example of a former cop that doesn't want to bash cops. And so now he's pushing this idea that they've got the DNA. You wouldn't necessarily tell the public, talk about information you wouldn't tell the public. You don't need to tell the public that you have a spent casing or an unspent round, not casing, round. You wouldn't necessarily tell the public that because that could be used in an interrogation only the suspect knows his gun jammed, right? So if you know that happened and witnesses told you, you don't necessarily need to tell the whole public that. And you reserve that as you're vetting out your suspect. But again, this guy, I don't know. I've got serious concerns about him and his ability to be a real expert on a story like this. The automatic 9mm is about as frustrating as it gets. So I'm shocked that I've been witnessing the explosion of leftist radical police officers. Now, I knew police chiefs, especially in blue cities, were always pawns of their blue city councils and mayors. But this police chief in Minneapolis, I'm going to change course here, go from Brown to Minneapolis. Did you hear what he said about illegal aliens in his city and working with ICE? This chief needs to resign immediately. He is not worthy of the badge. And I want to be clear here, folks. This is not a cop bashing episode. This is an ineptitude bashing episode. All right. If you're a good cop, you know I got your back. If you're an inept cop, I'm going to call you out for it. And that's what's happening in Brown, and that's what's happening in Minneapolis. Listen to this.
The Minneapolis Police Department is committed to honoring the human dignity of every person in our community. The Minneapolis Police Department does not participate in immigration enforcement. We do not care and do not ask people about immigration status.
Wait, you don't care about immigration status? Well, you should, because immigration status has a lot to do with your rights as a United States citizen and rights you don't have as a non-citizen. And certainly if you're here illegally, you broke the law, and you, sir, took an oath to the Constitution of the United States that you would uphold the laws of the United States. So now you're saying you're going to pick a crime and you're going to turn your back on that crime because you don't agree with it as a crime. That's not your job. Your job is to enforce the laws on the books. The laws on the books say you can't come here illegally. If the federal government needs help, then you need to help them. The fact that you're now placating illegal aliens who happen to be criminals, every single one of them, because they came across the border illegally, all makes them criminals. Some are higher degrees of criminals than others, granted, but they're all criminals. Makes you, sir, an absolute disgrace, Chief.
People in our community need to know that they can feel confident that when they need help, they can call 911, and we will show up for everyone, and not be afraid to call because they think we might turn them over.
So if you are an armed robber and you have committed many armed robberies, but you need 911 because you got in a car accident, should you be afraid to call 911? You want the cops to come help you too and not be afraid of arrest just because you need help? You can't say one crime is okay, one crime isn't. One crime is we'll come help you, but you're not going to be held accountable for that. I mean, look, that's the ramifications of committing a crime. If you're going to be living your life looking over your shoulder the whole time, some of the benefits of being a law-abiding citizen, like being able to call the cops, they'll show up and help you, are left behind. You don't get that benefit. Now, a mother comes here with her kids and she's got to call 911 because she's being mugged. That's up to her. Call 911. Now your life is more important than being in jail. I'd rather be in jail than be in a pine box. Call 911, but you got some explaining to do if you're here illegally. And that's just the ramifications of it all. But the chief doesn't understand that.
For some civil immigration violation. That's not our job. Our mission is to keep everyone in this town safe.
A civil immigration violation. It's not a civil immigration violation, but it is a misdemeanor. It is not a felony to cross into the country illegally. I have said, since I was running for Congress back in 2011, that if I ever went to Congress, the first piece of legislation I would introduce is to make crossing into the United States illegally a felony. And that would open up a world of opportunity for law enforcement to punish, deport, charge, detain all of these illegal aliens. It's got to be a felony, not a misdemeanor. And with the felony conviction comes a lot of other things. Your rights get taken away. And that should happen. But again, it's a misdemeanor crime. All right?
And we cannot accomplish that if a huge segment of this community is too scared to call us when they need help, because that makes everyone less safe.
No, it doesn't. I'm telling you, these police departments have created the problem. So why is this an issue for Minneapolis? Because Minneapolis basically put a bird call out there to call in every illegal alien because it's a sanctuary city. So now they got this issue. They're filled with illegal aliens who need help from the gangbangers and thugs. And by the way, Minneapolis is a huge gangbang city. Huge. It's a very violent city. Nobody talks about it. Everybody thinks, oh, Minnesota, the land of the lakes. No. Minneapolis is the land of gang violence and blood on the streets. And he wonders why. Because of things like that. All right. Patriot Mobile. You know I love these guys. 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT. America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They are the official cell phone service provider of Stinchfield's Army. I have a Patriot Mobile phone here. You can have two lines on one phone from two different networks. And by the way, you choose what network you want to be on, which is great. So you're not going to sacrifice service. Customer service can switch you literally in just minutes. And right now, as we come upon Christmas, they're giving a free smartphone giveaway if you sign up with Patriot Mobile today. 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT. What you do is you use the promo code GRANT, and that will get you that free smartphone. It's a great deal. They'll make you a deal to switch, too. And again, did I mention 100% U.S.-based customer service? So you'll talk to someone that actually speaks English. Again, Patriot Mobile believes in the mission that we are on here, and that is to take America back. That's the founder's vision. That's limited government, individual rights, protecting them. And you know that some of the money that goes to paying your cell phone bill will go to help veterans and other causes that we believe in, like the Second Amendment. PatriotMobile.com/Grant, 972-PATRIOT. Use that promo code GRANT for that free cell phone, and you will not be disappointed. All right, looking at the Rumble chat. I always like seeing these. What does that say? T Freedom Fighter? T Freedom Fighter 2. Hi, Grant. I'm a huge fan since Newsmax. Just wanted to thank you for communicating the truth to us. Merry Christmas, brother. Thank you, Freedom Fighter, and I love the screen name. If you don't know, you can find me on Real America's Voice, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. Now, this week, we got Turning Point USA. They're going to take over some of the show. Well, they're going to take over all the show Thursday and Friday. And then next week, I've got some vacation, and the week after that, it's going to be a touch-and-go show, and I'm taping some shows for Christmas Eve and New Year's. You'll have fresh content New Year's Eve and Christmas Day and Christmas Eve and New Year's Day. And I said those all kind of mix and matched, but you'll have new content there. But it's going to be a wild next 2 weeks. And I hope you guys are all getting to take some time off, too. It's important that you spend time with family this time of year, and I will be going to Boston to spend time with my sister who went to Wellesley College. She's a wild liberal, okay? And my mother and father, they're Trump haters. This makes for a very difficult time during Christmas. So here's what I do, folks. I know that I can destroy them like a conservative talk Navy SEAL, okay? I can destroy them in an argument, but they're my family. I don't want to do that. It's Christmas. So I stay in a hotel. I don't stay at the house. Okay, I book myself a hotel. I go for dinner. I may or may not take a Xanax. I don't always, no, in fact, I don't ever take a Xanax, except on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day when I'm with my family. I may actually do that. And I may mix it with vodka. This is horrible advice for your anybody youngsters are out there watching. Don't listen to me. But I will stay out of their way. Now, if the conversation comes up and they want to talk about it, I will not shy away from it. I think it's important to talk about politics if the other side wants to talk about it. The moment it descends into them yelling and screaming is the moment I cut the conversation off because they're not willing to listen. I'm not going to argue there. I'm not going to argue with someone who refuses to listen. I'm happy to have a conversation. And I'll tell you a great example of this. When I was in D.C. last week, I went out and I was surprised at how many government insiders, not conservatives, what I would consider deep staters, knew exactly who I was. I was at a bar called the Hamilton, across the street from my hotel. I had a whole slew of people come up to me, tell me that they were independents or they didn't care who was in office and they worked in government. They kept their views to themselves. This all told me that they're deep staters, okay? But I talked to 2 lawyers for the DOJ who were not Trump lovers because they told me they were not Trump lovers. But we had a good conversation, not yelling at each other. We debated the law. We could have a debate. They made their points. I made my points. I like to think I won, but it was really a fascinating conversation between 2 people. That can happen, but it can't happen with a radical leftist zombie because they're so focused on their beliefs and they can't handle when you come with facts, they short circuit. The moment somebody short circuits, folks, is the moment I'm going to tell you disengage. Feel free to talk politics, but the moment someone short circuits, you disengage. That's my advice to you as you head into the holidays. But again, what we're facing right now as a nation is one of the most important conversations that can be had. And I think you need to have that conversation, especially with the midterms coming up. Now, Rand Paul went on, and we were talking about the redistricting, or he was, on Meet the Press. I want to play this for you because the folks in Indiana really screwed up. You had anti-Trump never-Trumpers that were upset with President Trump because he said retarded. Give me a break. Have some cojones. Have a little thick skin. You can argue all you want about how it's not a nice phrase, whatever. Doesn't have anything to do with taking the country back. This is Rand Paul.
Final question on domestic policy, on redistricting. President Trump is threatening to primary, as you know, all of the Indiana lawmakers who voted against his redistricting plan, the new map that would have benefited Republicans. Do you support Republicans trying to redraw maps mid-decade?
You know, it's this escalation on both sides. You know, both sides are doing it. And so is one side going to sit quietly and not do it? You can argue who started it. But I do think this, and this is on the negative aspect of both parties doing this. I think that it's going to lead to more civil tension and possibly more violence in our country. Because think about it. If 35% of Texas is Democrat, solidly Democrat, and they have zero representation, or like in my state, we're a very Republican state, but we have one Democrat area in Louisville, and we have a Democrat congressman. We could carve up Louisville and get rid of that one congressman. But how does that make Democrats feel? I think it makes them feel like they're not represented. And so I don't know. I think it's bad, but it's really not one party or the other doing it. It's both parties have been doing it since the beginning of time. But in general, when it becomes so extreme, like if California has no Republican representatives after this is done or has one left, I think that makes people so dissatisfied they think, well, the electoral process isn't working anymore. Maybe we have to resort to other means. And I don't want that. And I think both parties it could happen to. But I think we need to be aware of and think about that before we do all of this.
Pie in the sky mentality. In a perfect world where you're dealing with reasonable people on the other side, you can have political foes, but you can be reasonable with each other. There's no reason from the other side. So you know what? There's no reason with me when it comes to somehow negotiating with them. I know I'm right. We're doing it our way because they will cheat. And everything they do leads me to believe they are going to cheat. And if they're going to cheat, then we've got to do what we can do within the bounds of the law to secure the election. If that means redistricting, than redistrict. President Trump knows how to win. Rand Paul wants to believe that, it's the days of the United States Senate back in 1950 when everybody was toasting scotches. And my guess is they're still toasting scotches in the United States Senate, Democrats and Republicans, and the joke is on us. But in the country, we're not toasting scotches. As I just said, I'll be with my family. They despise what I do for a living. Despise. I don't think they're proud of me. You know what? I've got great success in this world of conservative talk. They're not proud. I mean, look, I guess I would be proud of. If my sister went on to become the CEO of Planned Parenthood, I wouldn't be proud of her either. I guess it is what it is. It's a funky time we live in. Here's the president.
That's all they're good at cheating in elections, very good at cheating. They're professionals at cheating because we won in 2016 by a lot. The election was rigged in 2020. We have all the ammunition, all the stuff, and you'll see it come out. It's coming out in truckloads. And California's election, New York also, but California more than any other place is so rigged. It's such a rigged election. You know, we won the Hispanic vote. So a lot of people say Republican wouldn't win California, but I won the Hispanic vote. I won in Miami. Think of that. In Miami, I won the Hispanic vote. Along the Texas border, I won every single city or town touching the Texas border, and they're 85 to 90% Hispanic. We won the Hispanic vote. If the vote in California was legitimate, which it's not, they have 38 million ballots. Everything is mail-in voting. They mail out 38 million ballots, and they come in. Where the hell do they go, and where do they come from? It's a rigged election in California because we would win California by a lot. And again, they feel they have the advantage with Hispanic. They don't.
One of the ways they win in California is literally by mailing ballots to everybody. They harvest them and fill them out for people. No one will admit that, but that is exactly what happens. That's the mail-in ballot scheme in California. Now, conservatives are outnumbered in California. There's no doubt about it. But Republicans will vote at a higher rate than liberals were if it was a normal election. If you had to show up to vote, I think Republicans could stand a good chance of winning California now. They get closer and closer and closer. But the way it's set up, it's impossible for a Republican to win statewide in California. And I know this. I did radio out there for a long time. You know, I'm not doing radio in L.A. anymore. But for 4 years, I was focused on California politics and the shenanigans. There's no way under this current setup, as President Trump just confirmed, that a Republican can win an election in California. So these are real issues, to say the least. All right, folks. Let me tell you about the wellness company, twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT for 10% off. You got the emergency medical kits, which I used. I'm on amoxicillin. I'm doing better than I was 2-3 days ago with my sickness. I'm confident it was an infection. Amoxicillin working here. The other thing that has been very popular is the Ultimate Spike Detox. Whether you took the vax or not, if you've had COVID, this gets rid, it detoxifies your body of the spike protein that causes so many long-lasting issues. The Spike Detox is formulated by Dr. McCullough. Nobody knows better about how to get that Spike Detox out of your system than Dr. McCullough. twc.health/grant. Use the promo code GRANT. And we're talking about weight loss. If you want to lose weight, there is a product called Drop. This is melting pounds away off people. Use the promo code GRANT100, and you'll get $100 off the Drop product that is working. The testimonials are unbelievable. You can check them out at twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT100 for the Drop, and you'll get $100 off of the Drop product. twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT. All right, folks. That is going to do it for us today. A little bit of an abbreviated show, only because I'm not feeling as great as I am normally. I apologize for cutting it short. But Stinchfield's Army rolls. We will see you back here on Monday. Real America's Voice show tonight. Tune in. Special coverage from Turning Point USA. Stinchfield's Army rolls. See you then.